also say there's going to be more spoilers for Battle Royale and Season 1 of Squid Game more than anything else. I'll touch upon some of the themes and stuff in Season 2 and the sequel to Battle Royale, but I'm using those second parts more as a warning and an observation than anything else. So I don't think you have to worry too much about spoilers for the second parts. But yeah, me being an old man, I wanted to talk about the OG Battle Royale, the original Battle Royale, the whole reason we have the name and genre of Battle Royale. And that's why I'm talking about Battle Royale, the originator of Battle Royale. Battle Royale. So if that sounds interesting, keep watching. And of course, if you like this video, maybe watch one of my other ones after that. And then if you really end up liking my stuff, then hit that subscribe button. I'm slowly getting my way to 2,500 subscribers. And yeah, that's really fun and exciting.
Step on it, Daddy.
The first time that I watched my 11-year-old casually mention that they wanted to be a part of the Netflix version of Squid Games, I had this really, really weird, like, soul leaving my body feeling. I thought to myself, oh God, is this what my mom felt like when she found out that I went out of my way to buy a bootleg DVD of Battle Royale? Only instead of being horrified by the violence, my kid was excited about the possibility of winning money by just playing a whole bunch of schoolyard games. I mean, nothing quite prepares you for the moment that you realize that your child has completely normalized something that was supposed to be a warning about the horrors of capitalist exploitation. And it really got me thinking about how we got here. From Battle Royale being so controversial, it couldn't get a US release for over a decade, to us being here with Squid Game becoming Netflix's biggest hit and spawning actual reality show versions. We went from being shocked by the idea of children being forced to kill each other to voluntarily signing up to recreate these scenarios minus the murder. That progression tells us everything that we need to know about how capitalism evolves its methods of control. Here's the thing though, Battle Royale and Squid Game just aren't about similarly themed stories about death games. They're different chapters of the same generational tragedy, playing out in their narratives and their real-world evolution as franchises. From teenagers who have to be forced onto that island at gunpoint to adults who will walk right into their own execution because the system has convinced them that it's really their best option. And now we have my kids casually watching people compete in sanitized versions of these games here on YouTube. So the thing about intergenerational trauma is that it doesn't just repeat, it evolves. It rhymes, just like George Lucas. Battle Royale's director, Kinji Fukasaku, knew this firsthand. As reported in Tokyo Weekender, at age 15, he watched his own classmates die in artillery fire during World War II, and he was surviving by diving under the bodies of his classmates. In the 2000 companion book Battle Royale Insider, Fukasaku explained that his drive to make the film, quote, "When I read the original story, I felt I had to make a serious movie about people dying as it reminded me of my own experiences in 9th grade." And here's the second part of the quote that just hits like a gut punch. "As I lifted severed arms and legs," he remembered, "I had a fundamental awakening. Adults could not be trusted." That experience shaped his entire approach to Battle Royale. It wasn't just a violent spectacle, it was a warning about how systems of power turn children into casualties. And now, 20 years later, Squid Game creator Hwang Dong-hyuk was writing from a different kind of trauma, the soul-crushing weight of capitalist debt that had him, his mother, and his grandmother all taking out loans just to survive. He spent his free time in manga cafes reading stories like Battle Royale, which was out as a novel at the time, and wondering what it would be like to actually join a death game for money. The system had evolved from forcing participation through military might to manufacturing voluntary submission through economic desperation. So really quick, let's just recap over the surface similarities of these two stories and talk about how they're basically different chapters of the same story. So Battle Royale has a bunch of teenagers that are forced onto an island at gunpoint to compete in a death game. And Squid Game's adults willingly walk into essentially what is their own execution because debt has convinced them that that is really their best option. Evolution is right there in the premise. Battle Royale is exploding colors versus Squid Game's contract signatures. One story shows power exercising direct control, the other shows how systems evolve to make participation feel voluntary. It's the difference between play or die or play because you can't afford not to. And really quick, because this is primarily a Battle Royale video, I want to talk about probably the most impactful scene in the whole movie. It is the lighthouse scene. And this scene just like blew my teenager's mind because I had never seen anything like it before. It wasn't edgy for the sake of being edgy. It was edgy and violent to make you feel bad. It really hits different when you're an adult. It hits different when you're a parent that is watching kids trying to maintain normalcy in the face of horror. A group of girls have turned an abandoned lighthouse into essentially a makeshift commune. But what makes the whole thing truly devastating isn't just their eventual fate, it's just watching these middle school kids desperately trying to keep up a normal teenage life. They're talking about crushes, sharing secrets, trying to maintain some semblance of their everyday social dynamics even while death literally hangs over them. And then as these girls are celebrating one more person that is trying to join their cause of getting off the island, the poison kicks in. One girl dies and suddenly the pretense of civilization just crumbles. Years of petty resentments and social hierarchies explode to the surface. These girls who were moments ago giggling about who likes who grab weapons and turn on each other. One could say it was just like watching Lord of the Flies and fast forward. It was really just a stark demonstration of how quickly systems of control can turn children against each other instantly. Going back to the Tokyo Weekender, this scene particularly resonated with Fukasaku's anti-authoritarian message. The movie version of Battle Royale, under his direction, went for a more nuanced anti-violence message starring more complex kids who were exploited by a sick authoritarian system. This wasn't just entertainment, it was Fukasaku's warning about how power structures crush alternatives. And this is very much reflected in how all of the violence in this movie plays out. It's not like a whole bunch of, cool, sweet fights, oh, John Wick, cool. Nothing like that. It reminded me a lot of watching the movie Elephant by Gus Van Sant. And if you've ever seen that movie, it was essentially dramatization of Columbine. It was weird, and I don't know how I feel about it now. But anyways, it was very much like that. The violence was not cool. It was honestly pretty hard to watch. And not because of the gore or the violence or anything, but because of the fact that you are taking in the fact that these kids are being forced to do this. They don't have any other choice. And not only are they forced to literally grow up in those 2-3 days on the island, but on top of that, you just see the death of their innocence. And the whole thing is just heartbreaking. And then compare that to Squid Game's evolution of the same theme. By the time we reach modern death games, the system doesn't need to actively crush it anymore. It just figured out how to monetize it. Why destroy resistance when you can market it? Why silence critique when you can turn it into content? I think a lot of this is exemplified not just in the fact that people willingly come back to the Squid Game because they go back to their real world and life still sucks and they still need this money. And even when they come back, they still try to find ways to stop it because they know it's immoral. They know it's still messed up. But in many ways, while they don't end up perpetuating the cycle, they end up helping reinforce a lot of the ideals that they are trying to impose. And by they, I mean, the powers that be, the elite, whomever, the system. We have contestants that when realizing they could all vote to leave or they could just leave in general, like I said, they come back. We have people that start killing other people in the game as a way to not only increase their monetary gain, but increase their chances of winning. There are a couple people, few and far between, who try to either infiltrate into the system and then reject it for one reason or another. But because of the fact that they're working on their own, it makes it nearly impossible. They're working on their own and not working as a collective. It makes it basically impossible for them to do anything. They still end up dead. And also, just to cap off, I want to talk about Squid Game's masterful reveal at the end of season 1. So spoilers ahead. This reveal is kind of the reason why I have this little headcanon of mine. Il Nam, the seemingly harmless old man, it turns out that he was actually a wealthy elite who created the games because being rich enough to do literally anything left him so emotionally dead inside that he needed to participate in death games to feel alive. He chose children's games specifically for the nostalgia factor and in joining Ji-hoon's group to recapture some feeling of genuine human connection. So let's think about this progression for a second. We have Battle Royale's government forcing kids to kill each other, to Squid Game's billionaires recreating childhood games as death matches because extreme wealth has left them too emotionally numb to feel anything else. This is the capitalism evolution microcosmism, from direct force to manufactured consent to commodified nostalgia. The wild part is that the generation that grew up with the Battle Royale games being normal, at least from when the movie takes place, they would be right around the age of the Squid Games contestants being forced to participate in these games. You grow up knowing that there is an island where all sorts of terrible, horrible stuff just kind of happens. Maybe your class wasn't picked that year. Maybe your class was never picked. You just watched it, and as adults, you grew up, and it was just kind of normal. And then you get to a point in your life where you have, like, literally nothing to lose, and someone comes up to you and says, hey, you can win a couple mil just by playing some children's games. You just gotta live. I mean, that could be considered practically a vacation compared to what you grew up with. And in this scenario, the front man isn't just a villain. He's what happens when a generation that normalized childhood violence grows up to run the games themselves. He's every punk that sold out. He's every rebel that became middle management. Every millennial who swore that they would never become their parents right before catching themselves using their parents' exact phrases. But I mean, honestly, can you really blame them? When a system is designed to either kill you or corrupt you, survival starts looking a lot like complicity. So I'm not going to really go into heavy spoilers for Squid Game Season 2, but I am going to touch on Season 2 themes. So another thing I thought about while making this video is that it's very fascinating in how both properties tried to maintain their bite in their sequels. But they both ended up proving their own points about systemic co-option. Battle Royale 2 wanted to be an explicit critique of American imperialism in a post-9/11 era and the war on terror as a whole. But it lost the intimate horror that made the original movie just so effective. Squid Game Season 2 feels more of a personal revenge story on a couple different fronts, while still being marketed as this big global phenomenon. A lot of the first half of the episodes that we see don't even really have that many games in them, or at least not Squid Games. Both of them got caught in this familiar trap. How do you criticize a system while working within it? How do you maintain revolutionary spirit when revolution itself becomes part of a marketing strategy? The warning has become the entertainment, and the critique has become the commodity. We went from Battle Royale being unable to get US distribution because of its content, to Netflix turning Squid Game into a reality show minus the murder, and then having YouTubers go in there and make their own variation of it to much critical acclaim. We live in hell. It's like watching the evolution of capitalist control in real time, from the gun to the debt to the algorithm. I would almost say this is the oligarchical timeline we live in now. Going back to Battle Royale 2's attempt at political commentary, the film wanted to be a scathing critique of post-9/11 imperialism in America. It turned its teen protagonists into literal terrorists fighting against adult American homogeny. But Kinji Fukasaku died after shooting just one scene, and he left it to his son to complete what should have been a warning about intergenerational violence. The result, I mean, it was a film that traded the first movie's intimate horror for bigger explosions and broader messaging. It feels a lot like watching Green Day try to maintain their anti-establishment cred after being one of the most headlining bands for over a decade. The minute that you try to commercialize resistance, you've already lost the plot. And Squid Game's evolution is a lot more meta too. This show was explicitly made to talk about how capitalism turns human suffering into entertainment and how we as people are willing to go through that punishment for a chance of potentially living a better life. And then Netflix turned that into something where people are competing for potentially life-changing sums of money with a very big risk of really getting hurt. It's like the executives at Netflix took one too many improv classes and they watched this show and they yes-and a little bit too hard. My kids have pointed out how it's very weird that their Roblox avatar can wear Squid Game paraphernalia while playing what amounts to a literal battle royale. Like my folks, we have completed the circle of commodification. And when I sit there and dad rant to my kids about how these shows were meant to be warnings, not product lines, I sound like my parents, except I sound like the cool parent because I'm telling my kids that selling out is bad. The difference is my parents were warning me about a future that they were scared of, that they imagined would happen, and I'm trying to explain to my kids how we already have let it become the present. So here's the thing about trying to critique capitalism while working within it. Eventually, the spreadsheets tend to win the battle. Battle Royale 2 wanted to be an unflinching condemnation of American imperialism, endless war. Instead, it just became what happens when you double the budget, but you have the point. It's the writer's room equivalent of bringing a gun to a Super Smash Bros. Fight. Its director dying after just filming one scene feels almost like a very spookily cosmic metaphor for what happens when systemic critique meets systemic demands. As I stated before, the warning has become the entertainment and the critique has become the commodity. And I mean, the thing is, this commodification of resistance isn't exactly new. The system always has found a way to package and sell rebellion back to us. We have Hot Topic and its commercialization of alternatives, lifestyles, and alternative music. And we have the iconic Che Guevara face on the t-shirt, the poster child of commodification of revolution. What I will say optimistically, though, is that what's different now is that we are a lot more aware of the process even as we participate in it. I have helped raise my kids to engage with these properties in ways that would have been unthinkable to my teenage or even close to adult self. My 9-year-old son plays Roblox, which has variations, and he plays a lot of the actual Battle Royale games, or Last Man Standing if you're old like me. And he will do so while wearing virtual items from Squid Game, all without irony. And my 7-year-old daughter, she's going through a horror phase right now, and I have caught her watching like dumb horror 3 a.m. videos that have people running around in Squid Game outfits. And I can't be mad, but like, what are some of you adults doing? Like, really? But here is what gives me hope. My kids do see through it in the ways that I never could at their age. So when my 11-year-old says something like the Squid Game reality show contestants are just cosplaying poverty for clout, that's not cynicism, like goddamn, but I mean, that's almost a little bit of clarity. When my 7-year-old can look at me and point out that their Roblox character or their Minecraft character is dressed like one of the bad guys who shoots people from Squid Game, she's not missing the point. She's seeing it more clearly than the marketing team ever intended. And I mean, if these companies are going to do stuff like make the little girl from Squid Game, the big robot girl, into a playable character in Call of Duty, they need to be able to tell this stuff apart. Like, if you think that I'm sitting here overreacting, it's like, oh, just let kids have fun, you're a bad parent. You're a bad parent, and you're the whole reason that I am making these videos, and your hate just makes me stronger. But anywho, my kids are growing up in a world where, resistance comes pre-packaged. They're growing up in a world where resistance comes pre-packaged with its own line of merch. But they're also growing up with the tools to understand why that's really, really weird and not good. They might be participating in the commodification because there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, but they're doing it with their eyes wide open. And maybe that's the real evolution, not just how systems of control adapt, but how each generation gets better at seeing the matrix while they're still being plugged into it. God, I hate that other people ruin that metaphor. It's a trans allegory. Get over it. So yeah, maybe my kids will never know what it's like to hunt down a bootleg copy of Battle Royale or experience Squid Game before it became a meme, but they're at least learning something maybe even more valuable. How to maintain critical awareness even when swimming in the algorithm. They're learning how to see the warning signs even if they're being printed on a Happy Meal box. How to understand that just because something has been commodified doesn't mean that its message has been completely neutralized. It may be worth more critical thought and more critical discussion, but it's not neutralized. Because here's the final plot twist of this whole video. Battle Royale and Squid Game weren't just showing us how systems of power evolve to maintain control, they were showing us how each generation evolves to see through that control more clearly. From forced participation to voluntary submission to commodified entertainment to whatever the hell comes next, the next chapter, it isn't written yet, unfortunately. But I do think and hope that my kids' generation might just figure out how to hack the game from the inside a little bit. Because, I mean, after all, there is one thing that Squid Game and Battle Royale both taught us. And it's that sometimes the most dangerous players are the ones who understand exactly what game they are playing. And knowledge is power after all. And the power is yours. Okay, that's it for this video. This was the perfect excuse to talk about Battle Royale. Movie is like 25 years old now. God, I'm old. Yeah, I found it while I was still in high school, heard about it through sites like 4chan and all that back when it wasn't the worst thing on earth, but it was still pretty bad. And yeah, if you want me to talk about more in depth the Battle Royale book or the manga or the movie in general, because there is a lot to say, especially in like modern day America, there's a lot that could be extrapolated from Battle Royale. And yeah, you know, tell all your Squid Game friends that this is actually about Squid Game. Trick them in the coming year so I get more views, get more subs. I don't know how bad I'm going to have to censor this, but this is a good excuse for me to say the more subs I get, the more that I could do something like a Patreon and release uncensored or, you know, unedited versions of my videos in instances like this where they would need to be needed. All right. Well, I'm done yapping now. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I should talk about next. Let me know what you think about my other videos. Give me your feedback. Have you seen Battle Royale? Have you read the book? Have you read the manga? Have you seen Squid Game? Have you seen Squid Game Season 2? Which one do you think is better? Which one do you think is worse? Which parts do you think do what better? Give me engagement. I need more engagement. I'm just going to be quite honest. I need more people to leave comments. I'm literally begging. So thank you for leaving your comment now. Thank you for hitting subscribe right now. Thank you for hitting like now. And thank you for sharing this with anybody who will actually watch it. So I hope you have a great day. I will see you in the next video and bye.